Today I wanted to take on the topic of frequency. Usually when we start paying attention to our experience, we will notice that sensations or objects or clusters of sensations are coming and going. And if we start paying more attention, we will notice that maybe also within that arising and passing, that there is some kind of frame rate. And that frame rate can vary depending on state we are in meditation, or depending on our mood, or depending on our wakefulness, or depending on various factors. So you shouldn't expect that refresh rate or frame rate is always the same. But if you pay enough attention, it's there. And so knowing how to recognize it can be, for example, a tool to assess in which general territory of meditation you are. And it can also be a tool for insight. So, for example, you can pay attention to the frequency of your experience as you observe sensations, and then through that, observing the sensations as they're kind of flickering and vibrating in the experience, that can help you deepen your perspective of your experience. So what I'm trying to say is that frequencies are not just there in our experience, but that we can also use them to help our meditation. And so today I'm going to try two approaches to noticing sensations, noticing these frequencies, or noticing this vibratory quality to our experience. One, which I'm going to do first, is a very simple approach where we will imagine that our attention is a dotted line, and then we will change the length of the dots or of the cuts in the line. And then we'll try to see, modifying that, we'll try to see what is the most appropriate kind of cadence or frequency of our attention for the given moment. So for some sensations or for some experiences, shorter attention refresh rate will somehow feel more appropriate, and other times it will be longer. And the other approach, and I also hope that this first approach will also help us concentrate, that it will help us connect with the object. And then in the other part, I would like to invite you to pay attention to impermanence and just observing the impermanence of objects to try and assess subjectively what you think that the rate or the frequency in which your experience happens. While you're doing this, I would also like to invite you to pay attention to the interaction of what you may perceive as you or your attention, and what you may perceive as the objects, so that are on the other side, supposed other side of that attention, and to maybe try and see that they don't exist without the other. That attention is always reflected in the objects, and that objects are always somehow affecting attention, or that this line that you may see might not be there, that there is maybe no distinction between attention and objects. And if you perceive your attention, that is also an object. So if you are also perceiving it in the field of awareness, that's also an object that you might put on a higher level than these other objects. So Just pay attention also if that becomes interesting or if that becomes apparent. And to relax and settle into the meditation, you can consciously take a few deep breaths. And at first, just focus on the relaxation at the exhalation. And allow any rushing thoughts or jitteriness, excessive jitteriness in the body to dissipate with the breath. And now become aware of the streaming of the breath as you inhale and as you exhale. For now, we can use the nose or the area around the nose as our anchor point. So at first, let's just do a classic breathing meditation. So just try and observe the breath continuously. And whenever your attention slips off, just gently bring it back. And try and observe closer the movement of your attention around the breath. So maybe there is a particular point in the breathing cycle where the attention tends to be more easily swayed. And now try and introduce a pause in your attention intentionally. So while observing the breath, you can kind of return your attention on the breath and try to do that every half second or so. You don't have to be very precise, but try and return your attention to the breath. So your practice now is to do this continuously. Now you can try to make this returning of attention faster. So maybe you can do that 2 times faster than what you're doing now, or maybe even 3 times faster. And see if that causes any agitation, if it feels less comfortable, or if maybe it feels more comfortable than what you were doing before. If it shows the breath more clearly, or if it shows the breath less clearly. And now you can go back to the original rate. And make sure now to connect with the actual sensations of the breath. Sometimes it's easy to start imagining the breath. And you can try and slow it down. So make the refreshes more far apart. Maybe a second and a half. And see what that does to the clarity of the sensations of the breath. And also whether your focus is easier or more difficult to maintain. And now you can try to modify this attentional refresh rate at your own will. So you can try to make it faster, make it slower, and observe what that does to your experience. And you can also allow other objects that occur within your body-mind to become objects of the attention. So if you feel any physical sensations or any emotional tones, let's try to not use thoughts this time, because thoughts can be particularly distracting because they have stories. So let's concentrate this time on the breath or other physical sensations or emotional tones, or perhaps sounds that you may hear from the environment. And if it's human speech that you hear, maybe try to disengage with that. So while playing with the attention, try and notice if those sensations arise with some vibratory characteristics on their own, beyond what you perceive as the attentional refresh rate. And if you perceive any vibrations, you can try to do a similar thing that you have been doing with the attention. So try, if you can, to make them slower or faster. And see if that does anything to your experience. If it feels more comfortable or less comfortable, or if it feels like anything else. And once you have tried that a few times for that object, you can go back and observe its default frequency. And then you can move to another object. Maybe different objects manifest with different vibratory frequencies. Maybe not. So try and examine that. If your attention moves around, or if your focal point moves around and engages with different content, what is the frequency of that content? So, for instance, if you observe some tension or warmth around the belly, or any sensations in the back, or itchiness around your ear, or joy around the chest, And try and observe all the qualities around this vibratory behavior of sensations and experience. Try and integrate also the refresh rate of your attention into that. And try and notice how the attention vibrates as it moves around the space of experience. Can you maybe expand your awareness and allow multiple objects to occur in experience and to be seen? And how attention is another vibrating cloud around and within those experiences. How anything that you may experience as the observer is also another object vibrating in the field of experience. And just observe this dance of vibrations. And with this open awareness, just gently scan your experience and notice whether objects are vibrating at a unified frequency or whether there are any variations. So just gently inquire. And if there are any vibrations that feel more pleasant, you can allow them to spread across the field of experience. And now gently use this moment to remember the course of this meditation and any insights that you may have found. And in a few seconds, you can slowly end the meditation.